Hi, dear students. Myself, Anu Shashidharan, Academic Director and Biology Faculty of Rankings Entrance Training Academy. I welcome all of you in my new video lesson. Today, I am going to talk about Control and Coordination Part 2. This lesson is actually preparing for the students of CBSE 10th. Okay. As you know, the last day we have discussed control and coordination process occur in human body. And we have discussed the structure of neuron, the nervous cell, different types of nervous cells, etc. And we have discussed the human nervous system consisting of two parts. That is the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Dear students, this is actually the diagrammatic representation of human nervous system. Okay, it consisting of two important parts. First one is the central nervous system and the second one is the peripheral nervous system. What is central nervous system? Or which are the most important parts included in central nervous system? Look at the diagram. The brain and the spinal cord involved in the central nervous system. Okay, the different types of nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord together form the peripheral nervous system. That means, dear students, there are about 12 pairs of cranial nerves. What is the meaning of cranial nerves? The nerves arising from the brain. We can call it as cranial nerves. There are about 12 pairs of cranial nerves and 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Today, I am going to discuss in detail the central nervous system. You are very familiar. The central nervous system involves brain and the spinal cord. Look at the diagrammatic representation. Here you can see the central nervous system, means the brain and the spinal cord. Do you know what is the function of central nervous system? Yes. The central nervous system receives the information from all parts of the body and integrate it. As a result, our body can be able to respond according to the stimulus. Anyway, now we are going to discuss in detail the central nervous system. First of all, the structure of human brain. Dear students, this is actually the diagrammatic representation of human brain. As you know, brain, it is the most complex organ in human body. In this diagrammatic representation, you can clearly understood the human brain is divided into three main parts. Which are the three main parts? The first one is called the forebrain. Okay. Second one is called the midbrain, and third one is called the hindbrain. Okay. So the human brain is divided into three main parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. As you know, it is the center of performing all type of actions. Either it is voluntary or involuntary in nature. I hope you might hear about the difference between voluntary and involuntary actions. What is the meaning of voluntary actions? The actions that are controlled by the organism. That means the actions can occur according to our wish. Such type of actions are called the voluntary actions. What is the meaning of involuntary actions? As you know, the actions that are not controlled by organism. That means the actions occur not at all according to our wish. For example, the working of heart, okay, urine formation. All these concepts we have discussed in the first lesson. All these processes are actually come under involuntary actions. So dear students, all this type of voluntary actions and involuntary actions controlled by the brain. Okay, it performs the functions same as that of a central processing unit in a computer. Okay, now we are going to discuss in detail the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So before it, some general aspects related to human brain. You are very familiar. The human brain is protected by a bony box called a cranium. Okay, okay. The human brain is actually protected by a bony box called a cranium or the skull. You can see in this diagrammatic representation, this is the outer protective covering. That is the skull or the cranium. Okay, then you can see the brain again surrounded by a three-layered membrane. So the outermost covering is the cranium or skull. Okay, the brain surrounded by a three-layered membrane. This three-layered membrane called a meninges. Dear students, the space between these three membrane, I mean the meninges, is filled with a fluid. Do you know the name of the fluid? Yes, the fluid is called cerebrospinal fluid. What is the function? Cerebrospinal fluid which protects the brain from mechanical shock. I said at the beginning itself, the brain actually divided into three different parts. That is the forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. In this diagrammatic representation, you can see which are the most important parts come under the forebrain. Yes, students. The forebrain includes cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. Okay, this is actually the midbrain. The midbrain does not have any further divisions. This is actually the hindbrain. The hindbrain consisting of pons, medulla oblongata, and cerebellum. Dear students, now we are going to discuss in detail about forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. First of all, forebrain. Dear students, forebrain is the largest part of brain. Okay, the forebrain is the largest part of the brain. Okay, it is the site of learning, reasoning, intelligence, personality, and memory. Do you remember the most important parts of forebrain? Yes, the cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. The most important characteristic feature, it is the site of learning, reasoning, intelligence, personality, and memory. All our thoughts, sensations, actions, and movements are controlled by the cerebrum. As I said, this is the largest part of human brain. Dear students, the cerebrum actually having three different areas for performing different functions. Which are the three different areas? Look, sensory areas, motor areas, and association areas. What is the function of sensory areas? Dear students, sensory areas can be able to receive information from sense organs like the skin, tongue, ear, etc. What is the function of motor areas? The motor areas basically control sending impulses to muscles and glands to do various activities. The association areas are very important. That means the sensory informations brings the sensory neuron. You remember? Okay, the sensory informations are actually interpreted by relating it to the previous experience and informations from other receptors. So actually the interpretation occur in the association areas. As a result, the suitable message should be transported to the effector region through the motor neurons that we have discussed in the last video. So anyway, the cerebrum, it's actually having three different areas: sensory areas, motor areas, and association areas. Okay, because of the proper functioning of these three areas, our body can be able to respond according to the stimulus. Dear students, apart from this, there are certain separate area of the brain are specialized for hearing, smell, sight, hunger, etc. In this diagrammatic representation, you can see various lobes are there. Which are the most important lobes over here? The temporal lobe, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, and occipital lobe. Dear students, the occipital lobes control the vision process. Okay, the parietal lobes control the language and touch. The frontal lobe, it's actually control the thinking, memory, etc. And temporal lobe is very important. It's control the hearing process. Okay, this is something about the cerebrum. We have discussed along with the cerebrum, two more important parts are there: hypothalamus and thalamus. Dear students, the hypothalamus has centers associated with the hunger, thirst, body temperature, etc. Do you know the main function of thalamus? The main function of thalamus is to relay the motor and sensory signals to the cerebrum or to the cerebral cortex. Okay. It also regulates the sleeping process, alertness, etc. This is something about the characteristic features of the forebrain. Second one, you are very familiar, it is the midbrain. I said the midbrain, it does not have any further divisions. The midbrain controls the reflex movements of head, neck, and trunk in response to visual and auditory stimuli. Do you know what is the meaning of reflex movements? Yes, you might hear about in lower classes. In our body, some type of sudden automatic response are there. For example, if you are unknowingly touch a hot object, what happened? You should remove your hands immediately. Yes. If you are facing a problem, suppose you think about it. If a strong beam of light fall on your eyes, especially during the night time, what happens? You should close your eyes. Yes, such type of sudden automatic responses are collectively called reflex movements that we will discuss later. So the midbrain controls the reflex movements of the head, neck, and trunk in response to visual and auditory stimuli. It also controls the reflex movements of the eye muscles. Okay. The third portion you are very familiar, the hindbrain. Dear students, the hindbrain consisting of the pons, medulla oblongata, and cerebellum. First of all, I am going to discuss about the cerebellum. Dear students, this is the second largest part of the brain. Which is the largest part of the brain? Cerebrum. Okay, this is the cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain. It helps in maintaining the posture and balance of the body. Okay, the cerebellum coordinates smooth body movements such as walking, dancing, riding a bicycle, picking up a pencil, etc. Such type of smooth body movements are controlled by the cerebellum. Okay. Second one is the pons, it controls the process of respiration. Medulla oblongata is one of the most important parts of the hindbrain. Dear students, it controls various involuntary actions. I said in the beginning itself, what is the meaning of involuntary actions? The actions occur without according to wish. okay, which are not occurring according to our wish. The organisms cannot be able to control such type of actions, especially the heartbeat, breathing, blood pressure, and peristaltic movements of the alimentary canal. Okay, it is also the controlling center for reflexes such as swallowing, coughing, then sneezing, secretion of saliva, vomiting, etc. Dear students, as a whole, we can see most of the involuntary actions are controlled by the midbrain and the hindbrain, and most of the voluntary actions can controlled by the forebrain, I mean the cerebrum. This is something about the detailed structure of human brain and its related parts and its function. Next one, I would like to say the characteristic features of spinal cord. You are very familiar. The central nervous system consisting of brain and spinal cord. In this diagrammatic representation, you can see that long structure called spinal cord. It's actually a cylindrical structure, begins in continuation with the medulla oblongata and extend downwards. As you know, same as that of the brain, the spinal cord also covered by means of a three-layered covering called meninges. Okay, in between the layers, the same fluid, you remember, cerebrospinal fluid is present. The vertebral column or the backbone which protects the spinal cord. Do you know the function of spinal cord? Yes. The spinal cord is basically concerned with the spinal reflex actions and the conduction of nerve impulse to and from the brain. That means if any impulses may be transferred to brain that occur through the spinal cord. If any type of motor impulses, I mean any type of responses that also moves through the or the impulses moves through the spinal cord. So the spinal cord plays an important role in the conduction of nerve impulses. Okay, I mean from sense organs to the brain or from muscles and glands to the brain. At the same time, the impulses from brain to different part of the body. Everything should be occur through the spinal cord. Okay, so the spinal cord is one of the most important region of central nervous system. Dear students, I would like to discuss one more important concept, that is reflex action. In the beginning, I said, when you touch a hot object unknowingly, what happens? You immediately move your hand away from it. This is actually an example of a reflex action. Okay, so reflex action means it's a rapid automatic response of nervous system to a stimulus which is not under the control of the brain. Suppose if we unknowingly touch a hot plate, what happens? We immediately move our hand away from it. The pathway taken by the nerve impulse in a reflex action is called a reflex arc. Dear students, in this diagrammatic representation, you can see the reflex arc. What is the reflex arc? The pathway of nerve impulse in a reflex action. Suppose you think about in this reflex action, the hand unknowingly touch on the hot plate. What happened? The receptor cells from the hand, it actually sense the hot condition, and that impulses should be transferred to the spinal cord. Okay, from the spinal cord, what happened? The messages enter into the effector region, I mean the hands again. So the pathway of nerve impulse in this reflex action we can collectively call the reflex arc. Do you follow me? What is reflex arc? The pathway of nerve impulse in a reflex action. Now we are going to discuss in detail the reflex arc in this type of reflex action. Listen, dear students, in this diagrammatic representation, First of all, our hands touch on this hot plate unknowingly. First of all, what happened? The heat is sensed by a heat receptor in our hands. You are very familiar. Our hand, it's actually having so many receptors. So the receptors first of all identify or sense the heat from the hot plate. The receptor provide the impulse to a sensory neuron. That's very important. Look, this is the sensory neuron. Dear students, the sensory neuron carries to the impulses up to the spinal cord. Okay, and here the impulses is again passed on to a relay neuron, which in turn passes it to the motor neuron. So in between the sensory neuron and a motor neuron, there is another neuron called a relay neuron. So first of all, the motor neuron transfer the impulses to the spinal cord. The spinal cord will take the decision and send the messages first of all to the relay neuron, and finally that impulses reach to the motor neuron. What is the function of motor neuron? This motor neuron passes the impulses to the muscles. This is a motor neuron. The motor neuron transmits the impulses to the muscles in our arm. As a result, what happened? The muscles then contract. As a result, we can pull our hands away from the hot plates. Dear student, all these processes occur within seconds. Yes, this is actually the sudden response of our nervous system. Such type of reflexes or such type of processes we can collectively call the reflex action, and the pathway of nerve impulse in a reflex action we can collectively call the reflex arc. Dear students, basically two different types of reflexes, that is the spinal reflex and the cerebral reflex. First of all, in this diagrammatic representation, you can see that the reflex of this type involves only the spinal cord. That means the brain is not involved in this action. The spinal cord will take the decision and provide a decision or messages to the effector area. So in this type of reflex action, there is no involvement of brain. Okay, only the spinal cord involved. Such type of reflexes we can collectively call the spinal reflexes. But in some type of reflex arc, we can see that it involves the brain also. Okay, in some type of reflex arc involves the brain rather than the spinal cord only. Such type of reflexes we can collectively call the cerebral reflexes. One of the better example is that the contraction of our pupil of our eye because of the bright light. That's actually the better example for cerebral reflexes. Dear students, this is something about the process of coordination or control and coordination occur in animals, especially in humans. I hope you have understood all the concepts. Okay, the next video lesson, we will discuss the process of control and coordination occur in plants. Till then, goodbye. Have a nice day.